I was gonna tell you that my cousin has out high-tech hillbillied you, backyard bougie you. We went over there this weekend, and she has chickens, and she has a camera in her chicken coop, so she can see the chickens at all times. She has a electronic door for her chicken coop that lets her chickens go out to the run.
Oh, my ex has that for her ducks.
So
cute.
I was surprised you didn't have it yet.
What's up, Rena? I have too many. You know how many cameras I'd have to have out there?
What? No, I'm never mind. Fuck me.
Well, my birds aren't all in one place. Oh, you're talking about the pheasants outside?
Yeah. Why does this never come up for me? Ever.
Go
And I
hit
always
live.
The YouTube?
Hit the live button.
Live.
Hit refresh.
And now I've got it all zoomed weird, and I can't find the.
Why do you have it zoomed all weird?
Because I do something with the mouse. Oh, now I've done it. I must do something when I touch the mouse.
That's weird. Look at all these people. Hey, people.
All I see is JB. Are you?
I see. Oh, hang on. I gotta... We kidnap and ravage, we don't give a hoot. Drink up, me heart is yo ho. Should be changed here in a minute.
Oh yeah, that would be better.
Hey, people. All I see is JB. Okay, I'll change it. There it is.
Did you fix it?
Yep. Unafraid of murky. I like that.
Unafraid of murky. What is there's noise? Is it mine?
Yeah, yours.
My bad.
One more time. This song just makes me happy. Doesn't it just make you happy? Yo ho. What's up, YouTube people? Hey, what's up, guys? Master life. You don't, oh God, you can't. Oh no, you can't.
Someone else has access to the soundboard. I cannot believe we only just found that out. This is a game changer.
I know. I like this so much.
Oh, this is
makes me so happy.
Oh, I need to put something over. I don't like seeing. There's obviously the delay on the YouTube video.
Oh yeah.
So I can't. I have to cover it, or it throws me off. There we go.
Did you know you can do this? You can go pop out chat and just have like the chat by itself.
Oh, how do you do that?
Literally the button that I said that says pop out chat.
I don't have a button that says pop
Right
out
there.
chat.
The three little dots.
Well, yeah, I had to hit those first. Pop out chat, then I can just make this whole thing go away. Look at that. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, man, we got. So folks, what do you guys think about our little different thing that we got going on?
Why do you keep whistling?
I speak Whistlish. You don't speak Whistlish?
I don't. Is that do you speak Buck?
I know I do.
Listen, if you guys
Janet is fluent in Buck.
Yeah, if you guys watch of your patrons and you watch the Patreon right, you'll see Janet make a real asshole out of herself. Look at these notes I have.
I gotta
Did you look at my notes
some
that I have?
wildlife documentaries.
Do you know how embarrassed I was to post the calendar thing on the website? Did you see that?
Yeah.
Because like this is just like my work product. Like that's how my brain works. So I was like scribbling stuff down, and then without a script, and when I was doing the show, I was like, I'll post up my work product calendars on there. I was looking at them like, that's embarrassing for people to see. That's I use highlighters and colored pens and all this stuff to see, but you see patterns when you do that.
Yeah.
Two guys and Janet, says Montana. Zach and Bob need to twin it up. And what do you think we should put here? I took down my free Adnan thing because every single person that was on True Crime Binge was like, a couple of them, Quinn and Carrie had a really, they're like, I have some potentially good news for you. I used to have the NBI studio thing back there, but it's still.
Yeah, it'd be cool. We'll put one up here.
Or no, I had the True Crime Binge thing back there. But yeah, like a nice NBI Studios wood burned thing right there. I think that'd be cool. It'll smell like burnt wood in here for years.
Oh, well.
Because there's no ventilation in this room. Oh, finally got the notification. What's up, J-Lo? You see the Jennifer Lopez is in the house. She in the house.
Hey.
Can I just start this off real quick?
What?
I'm really disappointed that I don't get to go with you guys next week. I'm gonna miss you guys.
I told you you can come. Just buy a plane ticket.
Yeah. I'm gonna miss you
Oh.
guys.
Just can't afford it.
I know.
Gonna be
It's
here
not right.
by myself.
It's not right. I know.
I should come in and record just like this. Like just leave that seat open. Like record right here and leave that seat open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just talk to you.
With me not here.
Aw.
Yeah.
Listen, we should put up a GoFundMe that'll cover your travel expenses and your week of work that you would miss for doing it.
Yeah.
And then you can come with us.
I have a baby arm.
A baby arm.
Oh, Teresa says I have a baby arm.
Yeah, don't hold your. Once you start putting your hand back there, it does look like it gets small. Pretty quick.
Oh, it really
Aw,
does.
Look at that
Look-
cutie.
Hey guys.
Hi guys. Hey.
Oh no. I hate that we found
This is
this.
the best.
Oh.
There must be like some fish eye. High five, Zach. Put a really unflattering picture of me in my seat. That's not it. Fuck you, Michelle. Just
Oh,
kidding.
y'all, that
That's
really
funny.
made me laugh.
Take my strong hand.
Good work.
Here. People have smashed the like button. Put up a sign that says Janet rocks. Bob and not Bob should be reversed in their names. Why does it come up Bob and not
Oh
Bob?
yeah.
Well,
it
hey, you know what?
does.
You know what?
It does.
Happy to take care of that right now.
I like it.
No problem.
It's already confusing. I like this.
Yeah. Let's see if I can do.
I'm sure I don't know if everybody knew that or heard that story where we were at CrimeCon and the guy with a picture of you asked me if I was you.
With
They were looking
holding
for-
a picture of like for him.
They
to
were
sign or
looking
something?
for Bob and they gave the guy a picture of Bob to
Yeah.
find Bob, and he came up and talked to me. And I'm not Bob. I'm still not Bob.
Yeah.
Oh, I like what you're doing here. I like Bob's
Oh,
getting
goodness.
creative.
There it is. How about this?
We'll see if this works. Oh, well done.
How about
Well
that?
done. That's good.
Look at my name, Janet. Look at it. Look at the name.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you
Yeah.
just need to figure out a way to center that because now it looks like not Bob is sitting off screen.
Mm,
It's
it's getting out of hand.
yeah, I can take care of that real quick. Let me it's not a problem at all here. We got
Uh-huh.
not
This is important
where this
work.
is going.
We're doing important
putting
work
space in there.
today.
Oh wait.
Just keep putting spaces in there.
There it is.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
And then
Oh, this is good work.
this is great. Here, watch. There it is. Here we go. Bam.
Perfect. That's much better.
How about that? That work
Yeah.
better for you?
I like it.
Yep, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. This has been the follow-up, and we,
You're gonna
Couldn't
you're
find
gonna
the merch
stop
page.
doing your intro when the music comes on?
oh, that was the outro.
Oh, that was the outro. We're
Uh-huh.
done with the remember Bob and Weave. I remember Bob and Weave too. That was fun.
That was fun.
Like not Bob and Bob, or what Zach calls his guns. White guys with beards. Yeah, we are. Zach needs to walk around.
Did you just realize that we're both white guys with beards?
Zach needs to walk around with a sign that says not Bob and better looking. That's not nice, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
I'm back. What did I miss? You missed nothing, Jim. All right. I guess we should start this show.
Me.
Have you ever done the thing where you like swallowed like some air and it's like
Yeah.
it's like painful the whole way down?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm sorry that happened. I hate that.
I'm sorry it happened to me too.
one more high five with the strong hand.
Oh, that's gold.
Here
Great.
we go. All right, let me click Kelly back in.
We know. Oh, yeah.
Okay, we are back and we have a lot to talk about today off of Bob's The Books episode. What? Am I not saying that? You usually give me a hard time for not saying we're back.
No, you're fine. You just caught me off
You just
guard.
came in hot, like you're.
It was great. It was the best intro we've ever had.
I don't like this you two sitting next to each other because at the exact same time you were both like, it's getting too Muppety over there.
Let's try to all right, let's take that again. Let's make a clean one for Kelly.
All right, we're back and we have a lot to talk about today. Bob, you gave a lot of information about what you call the books in this episode, and we got a ton of listener response, lots of questions, lots of opinions, lots of ideas. There's a lot to get into.
Yeah. Before we jump into all of your questions, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what you think. For those of you that don't know, if you haven't been to the website, documents are up on the website. I have John's receipt book. I have the bank statements up, and then I put up my work product, which was I was talking about in the Patreon show. It's a little embarrassing for me because I wasn't ever intending to publish this. I do lots of weird things to try to see things, and I was trying to find patterns. So but I said on the episode I would share it, so I shared it. So there's my chicken scratch where I made calendars. But that's how I see patterns. And there's a lot going on in this episode. The patterns helped me. We have those last 3 months. And one thing, I don't know guys if you caught just from listening, but John doesn't use his debit card, which makes things difficult. So what I see in the patterns is John uses his debit card almost exactly once a week, always, to put gas in his car. Well, at a gas station, he usually spends between $40 and $47 at a gas station once a week. I don't know if that's gas and cigarettes. Vicky uses her debit card much more, but we see that she and on my handwritten thing, you'll see where she's using her debit card to buy groceries. She goes to Vons all the time. She gets the groceries. She goes to the cigarette shop and gets cigarettes. So she's handling, buying food and stuff like that. Also, it's usually her debit card that's used to pay the bills. One thing I did want to break down, because I don't think I covered them in the episode, were the utilities, because I think some people were asking, could some of the money that's missing that's in cash be used to pay the bills? That we actually do have the bills tracked. And Janet, you had asked me this the other day about the water. So they don't have municipal water. If you go way back to Tim Summerly's interview, who I met in Pinyon Pines, he talks a little bit about some of the older houses, John and Vicky's included, are part of a private water system. So somebody years back had drilled a really big well and then connected the water to several houses, and they pay that water bill. And it's the Alpine Village water is what the bill is to.
Okay.
And so we see they paid in the June and July statement, they paid $71 to Alpine Water. In July and August, they paid $81 to Alpine Water, both by check. And then we don't see that they paid the water bill yet in the August-September statement. Electric, they pay to Anza Electric. That is paid every month. It was $122 on June and July, $70. So I'm guessing that one they were late on that. It was $70 in August, July and August, and $116 in August and September. They pay their cell phones. They don't always pay their cell phones the singular, but they pay $115 in June and July. Did not pay, they paid it $177 the next month, and they did not pay their cell phone bill the final month. And then they have their home phone. They pay it for DirecTV. So those are the bills that they get paid regularly. Also, people ask questions about John's child support. In all the months for this whole year, including these last 3 months we went over, he wrote a check for $388 to child support, which is what his ex-wife said she was getting for child support. So we have the in the money we talked about, the bills are covered. Bills, groceries, gas, cigarettes are covered in there, are all covered in the amounts that I talked about in the episode. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. John obviously uses his ATM card a lot more frequently than Vicky does. And for more money, he averages around 10 withdrawals a month for $1,000 or more per month in cash. But he's using that cash for everything. So again, he doesn't use his debit card. So you can see in the receipt book where he's buying materials for jobs, but we don't see debit card transactions for those, which means he's paying for those in cash. But also they don't amount to very much. It's like $4 for a plastic tarp or a couple of that. And I added it up and I didn't bring it in, but like in that last month, it amounts to like less than $100. If I remember correctly, in materials that he's buying for jobs. So we still don't know where that cash is going. And we also have heard from multiple people that once the weekend comes, John heads up the hill and nobody sees him. But it's always on Friday where he makes usually around, I think averages around $160. We see 140, 400. And one he takes when they're the week they're on vacation in July, only $40, but the next week right back to 160, and then 80, and then the next week they were way overdrawn. They had overdrafts coming through. He didn't withdraw anything that weekend, but the next one was 100, and then the next one was, this is back in July and August. There was only 40, 20. On the Friday, so it was less. But then this last month of their lives, he kept $163 out of his check, and then the next week he withdrew 40, and then he withdrew 120, and then the next week withdrew 60, and then 40. The next Friday 200, and then the final week of their lives, on Tuesday he took out 120. On Wednesday he took out 140. On Friday he took out 120 and 60, so 180 more. So we see. Again, we're always looking for the thing that changed. In the last week of their lives before he was killed, he withdrew more cash that week than we've seen him withdraw in any other week. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, $440 in cash he withdrew in that final week, with 180 of that being on the 15th on Friday, and then on Sunday he's dead. So those are just some things I don't think I really put a point on when I was doing the episode that I wanted to bring up. And also we see that when we're looking at patterns, their overall output every month remains pretty much the same as far as how much they're John's always taking out about $1,000 in cash. And he's always using his debit card a certain amount of times. And Vicky's always using her debit card for, pretty average amount of times for groceries and gas and stuff like that. It was a little different when they go on vacation and that 1 week in July. But their output stays the same, but their input changes significantly. So when we're looking at the patterns and trying to figure out, did anything change? Yes, something changed, but it wasn't what I was expecting to find, which is, suddenly they're spending a lot more money somewhere. Where did the money go? Instead, what changed is whatever they're spending their money on, and whatever John is always taking the cash for to spend his money on, was obviously important to him, because in those last 3 months, their incoming money dropped dramatically by half, but the output remained the same. So even though they didn't have enough money to even pay their mortgage, for 3 months, he was still taking out, over $400 in that last week.
Can we discuss that for a minute?
Yeah,
because that's a big point. A listener brought it up, and it reminded me about it. We discussed them not paying their mortgage for the final 3 months. When did they refinance? Do you know when they refinanced the house?
I believe when I looked it up, it was in the spring sometime, just before I did the finances, just by looking at a background check. And then you see in March is when the payment changed.
Okay. Because I do know there's typically a grace period in there somewhere.
There is, but and a lot of people have brought that up, but usually that's like a month. So like when we sold our house and bought this house, we didn't refinance or anything, but there was, because of that transaction, there was a gap there, and we had 1 month where we didn't have to make a payment. I don't think it's a thing ever that you refinance or whatever and you get 3 months with no payments. And we don't see. And also their mortgage wasn't through, because sometimes if you have, like my mortgage is through my credit union, and they'll offer, I've never done it, but they always offer, like, especially around the holidays around now, they'll offer pay $25 and skip a payment. And you can, for the holidays and stuff like that. They had Bank of America, they banked through, and their mortgage was through Midland Mortgage Company. There's nothing to indicate in their records that they had that option. So yeah, I don't see any reason why they get to not make a mortgage payment for 3 months.
Well, especially if you're saying that you saw the amount change to reflect the new mortgage rate, and they did pay it for 3 months. It definitely seems odd that they would be like, and now we're going to take the grace period several months after all of this is shifted over.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and grab that grace period. That doesn't seem normal, but
yeah.
Yeah.
And they were very obviously having financial issues. We see that they've got overdraft charges coming through. They're overdrawing their account. They're pretty tight. And that could be, why didn't they go on their 2-week vacation that was planned? Probably because they didn't have any money. I mean, their bank account balance was next to zero all the time.
Right. And yet Ted Rutherford said, well, yeah, we used to give him advances, but he hasn't needed that for quite some time. So he wasn't reaching out to his boss. And also, we talked about this a little bit on the Patreon, then realized we wanted to save more of it for the follow-up. But that in that interview, he said, I couldn't tell you anything that changed. Nothing was different. He certainly didn't say, by the way, we noticed that John was less available and that's why he was getting paid less. You'll see that in the check stubs. Like, they didn't seem to have any awareness or felt it was worth bringing up that he was getting paid less by them for that month.
And in fact, he says that we have, he mentions how many properties they have in that interview and says they have a ton of work, so much so that they have 3 other guys like John that they contract to do stuff. But John is their number 1 guy. He's the one they get. So it sounds as though there was plenty of work. But what we see from the bank and John's receipt book was that he wasn't doing any more work. He wasn't taking the work available. That's one of the things we want to do while we're in town, is maybe get a little more info on that if possible. Was there a lull in work to do? Generally, end of summer is not when the lull happens, at least around here. But I know California is obviously it's warm throughout the year, so things are a little different. But around here, July, August, September, October are like when people are trying to get stuff done before the snow flies. So they're really getting busy during that time. But it's
strange that he wouldn't think to. It's like a little disappointing that in their conversation, they kind of marked how odd it was that he didn't enlist in the football pool, but didn't think it was odd that they had paid him half as much as they usually would that month. I don't know, strange.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Some people in the chat are mentioning that Tiffany had said that she paid their mortgage because it was the first mortgage payment. I don't know if she's just wrong about that or if there's something we're not seeing. Somebody said that Tiffany said by her recollection the mortgage payment was like around $700.
Right.
So, and she wanted to make the payment and of course we see a payment of like $960.
Right.
So people are asking, did they refinance twice? I haven't seen evidence that they refinanced twice. I don't know. I almost wonder if that $700 was the principal and interest without the escrow. Because we do see the one, there's a payment of $294 to Midland Mortgage Payment on that last month of their lives that they wrote a check to Midland. And it says in the memo, I didn't post the document with the checks because it's too much redacting because, obviously the account numbers on every check. And then it also has the back of the check that's stamped with account numbers and stuff. It's just, I don't want to miss anything. But that check says non-sufficient funds on it. So they had, but it shows cleared on the bank statement, but in the check, it shows non-sufficient funds. So I'm a little confused by that. But so if the escrow portion, which is the part for those of you that don't have mortgages, that's the part of your payment that pays for your homeowner's insurance and your property taxes. If the escrow part of that payment was $294, then it could be that the principal and interest of the house payment was around $700 or a little under $700. That's very possible that that's what was going on, but it's confusing. But the thing to me, and I don't know what it means yet, is I was looking for something that changed. Something did change, and not just like this is a slow time of year. That's why at the beginning of the episode, I went back and looked at August, September, October of 2005 to see, is that a slow time of year? And it's like John's consistently bringing home $55, $58, $100, $6,000 a month from his work. And then all of a sudden in these last couple of months, it drops to 4,200, which isn't super. It doesn't set off any huge red flags because they went on vacation that week. So there's, a little bit less time to work. But then it was like 2,900, then 3,000, and then they're dead. Like something changed there that I think is definitely worth looking into. And the weekend withdrawals, because people have speculated that, well, maybe the cash is being used to pay another worker, but there's no evidence. We heard from Devin, his coworker, he never mentioned that he had another guy with him. And am I going through all of your questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just realized it's 9:30 and like somehow you're like, and I've seen people post, it's like, but isn't this what the follow-up post is for?
That's my mistake.
Also, to have their questions and names heard.
Yeah. Sorry. You can read their names real quick. I panicked because
roll call.
You told me you had a hard out today,
people.
so I'm like trying to jam everything in. So yeah, I guess let's just how about we get into your questions, Janet, from the listeners?
Sounds good. And yes, I will be shouting out some people who definitely had some great questions that perhaps have been answered already in this long intro. But very quickly, we did have some Bank of America customers. I have been with Bank of America for a very long time. None of us found the sort of when the date of the statement starts to be strange. That is, for whatever reason, very typical. Mine, I think, are like mid-month. And then also just the ATM idea. Like, I know Mary said that she lives in a populated area and that her local branch is 20 minutes away, but there's a full-service ATM vestibule. So that didn't seem irregular to her. And I would say also for me, at exactly that time frame, that's when they were real specific on what your account type was, and you had to pay significantly more of a monthly fee if you wanted to be able to go into a teller. They were like really trying to keep you away from tellers. So I wasn't surprised at all because I avoided going in at all costs, or I would start getting charged for those exchanges.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but people said that they had what they called ATM only accounts, where it was literally you had to use ATMs for everything.
Yeah.
So that
which is very frustrating when you have a check that you're trying to deposit and for some reason the machine won't read it and you're like, oh, I have to go in. I got to go in. It's not
they
reading.
Can only see your shoulder.
I'm reading. Sorry.
Zach,
I was getting out of the way of my microphone to read.
Yeah. So Rachel and Laura and Kara or Cara were sort of thinking about like the businesses in Pinyon Pines. This is something that I don't think we've quite touched on yet, but people want the clarification. When we talk about Pinyon Pines, we talk about him going up for the weekend. If there are folks who are wondering, are there businesses that people would deal only in cash when they're up there? But my memory of Pinyon Pines is like when you go up there, it's houses, right? So it's not like he's going up the hill, but he'll eat at 4 different restaurants over the weekend that only take cash. It's not like that, right?
Alpine Village is what they call their area. Like that is just houses. That's Pinyon Pines. But if you go up the road a little further up towards Anza, we do have some charges where we see one where right before they went on vacation in July, I think, where Vicky used her debit card to go to, there's a restaurant up there.
Right.
But she used her debit card there.
Right.
And then there's also a little grocery store up there called the Anza Market. Martha's Village, I think, that's a homeless shelter she'd road check to. But anyway, there's a little restaurant and a little market up there. So there is that up there. And then I didn't realize, because I never went past Pinyon Pines, that there is also a casino up there. I thought all the casinos were down in the valley, but I guess there is a casino up near Anza, which could explain, the cash on the, why he's always withdrawing. But the thing is, if we're talking gambling, if that's what's going on, then it seems like a pastime, and John seems like a very disciplined gambler, because what we see is on Friday he will draw 100, 160, whatever it is. And people who have a real problem with gambling, you'll see the $160, $200, whatever it is on Friday to go to the casino. And then at the casino, another 200 and then another 200 and then another, as there's
sure.
So it's, it could be that he was going up gambling in the casino, but it's not throwing up any flags to me as a big risk factor if that's what he likes to do, is to go up and, play the slots until he's out of. If
Right.
that's what he's doing, according to the bank statements, he's playing until he's out of money and then he's going home.
Right.
That's what's happening. So
Right.
it's not like he's like caught up with some like loan sharks or something at a casino that we know of so far.
Right. Claire just wants to, I think people just wanted to make sure, like, are we looking at all the accounts that there were? Claire says, is that the only account John had? Anything in his own name? I know you mentioned at the beginning of the episode that there were some people had some questions about credit reports and Becky's finances, but you sort of touched on that at the beginning and said there wasn't a whole lot to see there. There's
another statement. So people ask about their savings account. That's part of this statement. They just didn't carry much of a savings account. But if you look, like the last pages show what they have going on in their savings account. Supposedly this was all they found for John. They didn't have another account somewhere that we're aware of. There is also statements for Becky's savings account, which we can go over at some point. There's, again, not a lot going on there. There's a credit report where they had they did have some credit problems with credit cards and stuff at times, but it seemed like all those accounts were closed.
Because Valeria had mentioned Tiffany talking about how after the fact, she felt like she was getting calls from companies that were maybe looking for John.
Yeah, I have to go back and look. If I remember correctly, what I found was that anything that they had, like credit cards, those accounts were closed. Most of them were settled, but maybe there were some they were still. But what we could see, they weren't making payments on them. Even though they were supposed to be making payments. That does bring. I do want to mention too. And again, it's probably a question you already have. So sorry, person who asked the question. But in case we don't get to it, the authorized deduction on her pay stub from Macy's. I had 2 different Macy's employees from that time period write into me and say that's exactly what I had said that I thought it was, which was when you're an employee at Macy's, they don't give you an employee discount. In order to get the employee discount, you have to use either a Macy's credit card, or if you don't have, at least then, if you didn't have the Macy's credit card, you could kind of run a tab and then they would take the money right out of your paycheck in order to get it. And they said 100% the authorized deduction on the paycheck is paying your tab for stuff that you've bought at Macy's. And also the franchise tax, which you probably knew that, Janet, living in California when it came through. That's, when I looked it up, it showed that it was like a business tax, that apparently the franchise tax, that's just the California taxes.
Right. Yes.
Which is, indicative of what we already knew about John, which is that he hadn't been paying his taxes. He was in tax trouble. So they were taking taxes out of his account. So that's what the franchise tax was.
Got it. Yeah. So shout outs to Caroline and Courtney for trying to kind of wrap our heads around those additional pieces of financial information, like the credit reports and stuff. I just want to read Alexis, and I'm sure you knew when you were writing it that it was an incredibly long post, and then you did an incredibly long post afterwards, and it was all very valuable. I spent a lot of time trying to make it shorter but not lose the gist of the post. But essentially, I just wanted to address that Alexis, and perhaps she represents other folks as well, kind of doesn't see what you see. So I don't know if you want a chance to address that, but Alexis sort of says, we already knew that he liked to use cash. I know we're looking for what changed, but, John was self-employed and Vicky had a commission-based income, so they were used to ups and downs. They were used to overdrafts. Maybe they were just folks who cobbled together their fluctuating incomes and weren't great at planning ahead. And yes, John's cash withdrawals slightly increased, but it's not like he went towards thousands. So Alexa's just saying, I guess I'm just wondering if there isn't as much here as we want to think there is.
Well, the documentation we have doesn't support the idea that they were used to balancing their fluctuating income. They weren't. They usually had $6,000 or more per month to work with, always, for the whole year, over a year that we have records. So something, again, their outputs didn't really change. But there's no month other than the last 2 months of their life that we have access to that where they ever dealt with less than $6,000 a month as far as income to work with to pay their bills. So I would push back against that and say there is. I don't know if it's important. I don't know if it's going to mean anything. But our job is to look at everything and figure out, is there something that's changed? And there was a significant change. So we have the bank statements to support that. And then we have Ted Rutherford saying that, yeah, we always pay him about $60,000, $70,000 a year, which is again consistent with that, $5,500 to $6,000 a month that he's paying John. That's very it's all consistent until these last 2 months. So
yeah.
That's, to me, that what I learned from this is that's the change. What I learned is there's no spending patterns that are indicating to me a big risk factor, but there is a big change in their income, and that could be there's any case, any crime, any incident, there's always going to be some sort of a catalyst, something changed to cause it. Could this not have anything to do with it? Absolutely.
Right.
But this is the first thing that we've seen. So the only changes we've seen is Becky broke up with Jacob right before this, started talking to Robert again right before this, and John and Vicky's income decreased dramatically right before this. So far, those are the only 3 things that we've seen that have changed.
Great. Just touching in on the mortgage, I'm just going to look at these and make sure we kind of already covered this earlier, but Kelly and Abby, Sue and Amy, just circling around some mortgage stuff, bringing up the idea of somehow paying that by cash or somehow being paid by Tiffany. Would there be some sort of notification from the lender about a foreclosure if there had been 3 months? Anything else that can kind of be tracked in there?
There could have been, but I haven't seen where they really. I haven't seen any documents from Midland Mortgage. And anything like notification stuff like that would have been probably in the house and burned up, or in the trash outside, which they didn't bother to go through.
Yeah, I know I asked you that yesterday. Like,
yeah,
hey, what about that dumpster?
Yeah, they just didn't seem to care about the dumpster.
So yeah. I just spent a bunch of time trying to go through Tiffany's transcript, and it talks about the refinance multiple times, but never really gives any information about it, like when it was. Right?
She had a couple interviews. Is that the one where she said that she paid their first payment?
I haven't seen that part in here yet, but they talk about the refinancing.
Because I believe when she said she paid their first payment, I believe that was in one of her later interviews. I think so. Which is again, it was. And if that's accurate, is that one of the? No, it's not in there. If that's accurate, that could be why the numbers and the details could be wrong, because it's been a while.
Right. I see Kristen, Caroline, you both brought up, it's Ted Rutherford, right? I just want to make sure, because Tim Summerly and Ted Rutherford, right? Anyway, they have a couple questions about whether or not we'll be able to talk to him in Palm Springs, and he has passed away. So that is not possible. I know you're reading comments because you are absolutely not listening to me.
Did you ask me a question? well, this is legitimate, because I saw somebody had posted on the chat that said all monthly mortgage payments were made except for July 2006. I don't know where. I guess I'll keep looking at the chat and see where that information comes from, because we don't see that coming out of their bank account at all.
Interesting. No, I was just, the folks were asking if we were going to talk to Ted Rutherford. And then I clarified, it's not Tim Rutherford, it's Ted Rutherford, right? It's Tim Summerly and Ted Rutherford.
Yeah, it's confusing because in the police file on the audio recording, it's labeled as Tim Rutherford, but his name's Ted Rutherford. Okay. And Ted is passed away. He's no longer with us. So, but we're hoping to maybe talk to somebody. I believe his daughter still runs his company. So. Right.
Sarah and Dawn and Amanda, noting all of your great posts about the mortgage stuff. I think we addressed some of that stuff, like the grace period in there. So getting into sort of this idea of the spending, the gambling, other things that could be considered quote unquote vices or places that money goes. Kathy and Sarah posited this idea of some sort of drug addiction. They have had personal experiences in their own lives, which my heart goes out to them, because I totally have too, where people in your life are doing a heavier drug or a more expensive drug, and maybe they take out a little bit of money thinking, oh, this will be enough. And then later that day or a couple of days later, they do have to take out more because they want more. And then, Nicole also kind of asked about any drinking habits, like could some of the Vaughn's stuff be drinking? And so just wondering if we talked about the gambling, but is there anything that's coming up for you as you've had more time to process this that suggests some sort of substance abuse?
No, it's certainly a possibility, but we don't have any evidence to support it at this point. Right now, we have, the autopsy that showed that they both tested negative for any kind of drugs. I have seen I've done a lot of research on this, and it seems that it is very possible that because the body is burned up, that those tests would come back negative, even though they should be positive.
Mhm.
But that's just one of those things. That's a possibility. That doesn't mean that that's the case. We really don't know. We just don't know if there's anything to do with any kind of drug abuse. Like I said, we see the money coming out. We see that in that last week, all that money coming out. I have no idea where it was going, and that's what it's unfortunately John kept his circle pretty tight, so it's hard to find anyone that might know where where that money was going. And I want to point out too that Nicole from the YouTube chat, who I asked about the mortgage payment, says she has the monthly statements from the case file. So I guess I'll circle back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't see that in the monthly statements that I have. But I'll look
Yeah,
to see
she
if there's
says you can
anything.
email them over.
Yeah, that'll be
great.
fine. And yeah, and what I'll really be curious is where that money, because I know what their bank account balance was, and there was never an extra $900 in the bank in August or September where they could have paid it. So if it's being paid from somewhere else, then we have a different source of income, I guess. But you can email that in, or I'll look and then
Great.
Let you guys know.
Cool. Thanks, Nicole. Moving into some sort of more John-specific stuff. Obviously, we've already been talking about it a little bit, but I just wanted to acknowledge Kara's post, who says, I think I shortened it a little bit, but I see a lot of people on the fan page still talking about John as someone who didn't pay taxes, didn't pay child support, etc. Though at a minimum, it sounds like he was doing those things at the time of his death, which you mentioned on the episode, Bob. Knowing that John did have a bank account in his name, did pay taxes, and was making child support payments, does this change any of the prior risk factors or statements about his situation?
Well, we knew that we heard from his ex-wife, and she said that he hadn't paid child support for years and years and years. And then when they got the $10,000 from Ron, they paid that to her to make up for a big chunk of the arrearages. And she said from that point forward, he's been paying me $388 a month.
Right.
And we know that, we've heard from, his coworkers, from his ex, remember that he had tax, but he wasn't paying his taxes, where I wasn't paying his taxes properly, and had tax problems, had tax trouble. So he's, we see that there's that money coming out, which doesn't look like he was necessarily paying his taxes, more so that they were taking his taxes from him, that he hadn't paid. And we see that in his background check. We see that he has multiple tax liens filed against him. So,
right.
But no, most of that we already knew, other than, I didn't know that they were taking $125 or $175 a month out of the account.
Okay. Chastity and Michelle and Amanda and Lynn and a different Amanda, Teresa, everybody's interested in finding out if we can find out more about John's work for Rutherford, any other places that he might have worked, any other individuals he might have worked for and been paid under the table. Hopefully, maybe some of that will come to light somehow in Palm Springs, or as everybody does their work from home. But there were definitely questions also about those supplies. Kind of thinking like, well, maybe that does account for a bunch of the cash. But you've already pointed out earlier that he would. There's no reason that I can imagine why that he would not bill for those. If he's paying $100 out for lumber or whatever, that of course you would imagine that would show up on an invoice per se, or like the receipt that he'd be reimbursed for.
Yeah, and seeing his book, from hearing from Rutherford and looking at the bank account, I'm assuming that it seems like most big material costs were taken care of by Rutherford. So like, for example, like if he was going to go to a property and install a new bathtub, that Rutherford would like get the bathtub, get the materials, get him there. And when John goes to buy materials, like, I needed a tarp and a putty knife or something.
Gotcha.
To put up. And then a lot of times what'll happen too in those cases, those situations, from my experience being a contractor, is they'll have like the property management company may have like accounts at like the lumber, like you can go down to the lumber yard, put it on our account, and pick stuff up. That's why we see only small little things that he buys.
Oh, that's very helpful. That's great. I saw this earlier in the chat, friends, and I didn't point it out, but I see Gigi. I see you pointed that out. Also came through from Kelly in the follow-up post, wondering if maybe John had some sort of injury or a medical procedure, something that could have come up for him that would disable him from doing the same level of work.
Not that we know of, and like you had mentioned earlier, that seems like it would be something we would have heard from Ted Rutherford.
Like, oh, he sprained his wrist, so of course he's worked less the last couple of weeks. But
yeah, instead, what we heard was that he was staining their office or something, like that week. That he was like doing that job, and that he came Friday and got his last paycheck, and then we see where he got it was like $681 that he got that check and he deposited it, and what was it? It was $661.84 that he got that check, deposited it, withdrew 180, and headed up the hill.
Right. Jocelyn was one of the people who had pointed out the possibility of maybe the $163 going to a worker, like a subcontractor, maybe somebody he brought in. We sort of addressed that. Amanda, Clay, folks speculating that maybe he's not bringing home as much money because he's working off a debt to someone else. Like, I'm not available because I got this other job, but you're not seeing any money come in because you're working off an actual debt, as your labor is that kind of compensation.
Sure. Yeah, these are all possibilities, but they're all, like I said, there's people too who said, well, maybe he had a worker, and so he wasn't really making that much money. He was giving it, he's paying it off to a worker. Again, these are all possibilities, but we just don't have any evidence to support it.
Yeah. Going into Vicky a little bit more, Jenny and actually a different Vicky were curious about the possibility of this significant vacation time that Vicky used being paid. If not, it's a lot of time to take off without getting paid, especially if you are seeing less income coming in from elsewhere.
Yeah, unfortunately, she never deposited her last paycheck. And the one check, we have the one stub that was found in a car. There's just a photo of it. You got to kind of zoom in and look to piece it together. But that check was dated on the 8th, which was the week before. So it's her second to last check.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from the pay period that ended on the 2nd. So it was all before the vacation. I believe, if memory serves, it says on that stub that she has 44 hours of vacation time.
Okay.
And I don't remember if it's showing that she still had 44 hours, or that her year-to-date amount that she had been paid for 44 hours of vacation time. I can't remember. But so it seems like she does get vacation pay at some point, for some amount. But if that means 44 hours is what she has, and that's certainly not 2 full weeks worth. She would have to take some unpaid, and of course she's not making any commission while she's gone either, so it would be less. But she had to have gotten some vacation pay because she didn't work the 2 weeks before the murder. She gets paid weekly. And her coworker said that she came in Friday to get her check. So she got a check from the pay period that would have ended the week before, which would have been at the end of a week when she was on vacation. So the fact that she got a check, I would think either means she has vacation time, or maybe there's like a lag with the commission that gets paid out later. I'm not sure, because we don't have that stub.
Okay. I want to read Valeria's post about this, but Jocelyn, Sandy, and Sarah also brought up stuff similar to this. Valeria says, in his first interview, Ron stated that when he discussed the retirement money with Vicky, she said she needed the money as a lump sum and preferred to have that to a monthly check, which he was surprised by. There also seemed to be maybe some urgency in her request. I wonder if she felt she could protect a lump sum from John more easily. If she wanted to get out of the relationship, a large lump sum would have been very helpful. Have you been able to work out any further where her share of the pension funds ended up, beyond just Ron saying it was in an account somewhere?
No, and we even have the documents that some listeners have dug up from the probate, because it took years to settle this estate because there was no will or anything. And there's a pretty hefty homeowners insurance policy that eventually was paid out to Tiffany. And I'm trying to remember, in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $300,000, I think. That was eventually paid out to her a couple of years later, I think in 2009 or 2010, somewhere around there. But like in the probate, even, that's still not. So I've yet to see any verification that money that Tiffany said that Ron told her existed did exist. And well, I guess we heard Ron say it too, that it was there, and then Tiffany relayed that he had also told her that. I haven't seen that's the case.
That's
Doesn't mean it's not
concerning.
accurate.
No,
Yeah, but
it's kind of concerning.
Yeah, a lot.
well, it would certainly it would definitely change things as far as what we're looking at for risk factors. We kind of I kind of thought, well, Ron can be ruled out because the one thing that could be motive for him would be that if she's alive, he has to pay this money, but if she's dead, he doesn't. And if it turns out he had already paid it and that was done and over with, then he no longer has any motive. Because I don't buy I'm just mad about it a year later motive. But if there's like a legitimate, like, if she's gone, I don't have to pay this, then that's motive. So, at this point, it's a question mark because we haven't seen documentation that money was actually paid out in another account somewhere.
That is
Yeah.
concerning, the mystery money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that seems like such an important thing to account for on paper in a
Yeah.
case file. That's why I hope it turns up, Bob. I just hope it turns up because I think that's a really, really great perspective, Valeria, and those of you who are and I've seen some talk about that. We've seen some talk about that when we first started hearing about Ron saying that the account had been there. This idea of perhaps she did want to keep it a secret. Maybe she did want to leave the relationship and felt like she needed to hold that and keep it safe because, she might need it for something. But on the other hand, I don't know that we've heard a lot about those sorts of decisions being made by Vicky from the perspective of people like Tiffany or her other daughters in the past, where she would be the type of person to comfortably go, I'm not going to touch that, many, many tens of thousands of dollars. I'm going to keep that a secret. I don't know. I mean, I hope we find some real hard evidence of that.
But was it a secret? The only reason I would kind of push back
because
on that
he was talking
bit,
about getting it.
Right. That's the thing is John was talking about getting some kind of money from some kind of inheritance somewhere.
And why $175,000?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's still a question mark.
Yeah.
Before you move on to the next
yes.
one, I just want to one more time circle back to, like I said, Nicole had said that she has the monthly statements that she'll email them. I don't know which monthly statement she's talking about, but then somebody else said that in the statements there's a checks paid section, right? And I just want to point out that I'm aware of that, and that's what I'm saying. In the checks paid in and July, there's no check paid to mortgages. There's a check for electric, a check to somebody named Monica for $45, a check for $50 to a homeless shelter, John's child support check, and then a water bill. And then the next month we have the water bill, child support, and 2 checks to bonds during the weekend when they were overdrawn. And then the final month we have $137 check written to Becky by Vicky, the $294 check to Midland Mortgage that says escrow payment, and the child support payment. There's nowhere in there in those 3 months where it says that a check was written to a mortgage company. And we have a file with all of their clear checks, and there's nothing in there either for those 3 months.
Do you know anything about the homeless shelter payment? Because that really touches my heart. If they were, to be struggling and then to make a contribution like that is like, oh, that touches.
That's
my
what
heart.
it looks like to me. Because the check is to Martha's Village, and all this. By the way, I'll have a real quick wet seal conversation too. So as obviously I'm not familiar with all these things. So whenever I saw a payment or a check or a debit transaction to something I wasn't familiar with, I did a quick Google search, and there was a check to Martha's Village for $51. So I thought it was a grocery store. I punched it in, and Martha's Village is a homeless shelter in the area. And she wrote a check for
$51 is an odd number.
It's a very
$51.50.
specific amount.
It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
So it doesn't seem like a donation. A donation you would write
An even number,
an
right?
even number. So there's something there.
We should
But
put
it
a
could
pin
be
in
like
that.
they
That's
did
very
like
curious.
they could like a craft sale or something.
Sure.
They might have done something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Interesting. Very
But
interesting.
but again,
Okay.
that was in June, and that was like right at the beginning when they started to have the money problem. Prior
Hmm.
to that, even though they weren't, necessarily responsible with their money, they were, there was enough coming in to cover the going out at the beginning of this. It wasn't until the last 2 months where it was like they were just way underwater.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Real
Wet
quick,
seal.
I'm sorry. Wet seal.
Let
Man,
us
people
not
lit me up over
forget.
Wet Seal. My wife lit me up over Wet Seal. So
Shiloh lit you up over. Well, she certainly lit me up over Wet Seal. She's like, someone needs to tell Bob what Wet Seal is.
well, I thought it was like a West Coast thing, and that's why I didn't know. But Becky's like, "No, you idiot! That's like where we bought all of our clothes." So when I came through, there was a charge to Wet Seal. I had never heard of Wet Seal. I quick Googled Wet Seal, and there was a website that I went to that's gone because they're out of business. It just says like under construction.
R.I.P.
And so I clicked the Wikipedia link to it, and it says that whatever designer created the store, and they call it Wet Seal because his bathing suits look like his bathing suits on the models looked like a wet seal. So I'm like, oh, bathing suit shop. And that's so it wasn't just complete idiocy. I just was very quickly trying to track where the money was going. And when I did my Google search for Wet Seal, that's what I found. And apparently should have read a little bit further. Also, I'm oblivious to everything ever anywhere because evidently everyone when I was a teenager was buying clothes at Wet Seal. And I didn't even know it existed.
Okay. So great. I'm glad we clarified that. Valeria was following up on the bank statements and financial information question about Becky, which you touched on. Also, I think it was you, Caroline, who mentioned just reminding us that Ted would say that, when Becky would come in to see John, that he would say, oh, what's this going to cost me? With the sort of idea of like, oh, did he just keep cash kind of on hand as one would? Because if you're not using your debit, you always want to have a little cash in your pocket, especially if you, given him $20 here and there to somebody.
Yeah. And he seemed that seems very obvious. Again, what we can see when you put with my little color coded worksheet that I made, and you see that for me, for the way my brain works, it jumped out at me that, oh, he doesn't use his debit card at all. So it's not weird that he's doing all the ATM withdrawals because he operates primarily in cash. Yeah. So it seems like most weeks he's withdrawing, probably on average $250 a week. So yeah, I'm guessing he always had cash in his pocket.
Yeah. By the way, great notes from Danae and from John and Jennifer about charities actually do asking sometimes for specific amounts, like if there's a processing fee, like $1.50 for a check processing fee or a transaction fee, that you agree to kind of check that box, which we still do sometimes online, right? Where they say, would you like to? So maybe that's it, that it was going to be $50. And then it was like, would you mind writing it for $1.50 extra? Because that means we don't have to pay anything out. There's no processing fee for us. And you're giving, you're helping us with the transaction as well.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a really good point. Good job, guys. Jordan says, I remember Javi saying Becky would help make family payments, cell phone. Do we have any access to see if there were any missing payments paid by her?
No, when I went through, and if I'm wrong about that, I'll make sure I let you guys know in the next follow up. But when I went through Becky's, and I'll get them posted. I don't even know why I didn't post them, just because I went through her statements, and there was nothing there that was really of interest in the case, so I just kind of moved past it. But I certainly didn't see where she was paying a mortgage payment or a cell phone bill. And we see who's paying the cell phone bill. Vicky is. It's in their transactions.
Right. Yeah, so the car payments and the cell phone bills of Drew's and stuff, we just don't necessarily see.
I think the car payments, if I remember, we do see those, that Becky's maybe be making those, I think. But we'll circle back to that.
Okay. And then the last thing I have is, just a general, I saw the Kathy B, you posted this. It's a question that we continue to ask and nicely sort of rounds up the cui bono. It's the question she's been wondering and teaching her students to ask: who benefited? What could the potential perpetrators have stood to gain? Was the death of the victim, or if it was one or all, the primary goal, or did they benefit from the destruction of the property or something else?
That's the big question, isn't it? And that's what we're trying to figure out.
Kathy, I hope you have your students working on this.
Yeah, I think everybody should have their students. We can get it figured out. Yeah, that's why I said, like, with this stuff with the money with Ron, like, we need to somehow figure out if that was ever paid out, because if it wasn't, then that's what we said at the very beginning was, there's one person that, whether that's the reason they were murdered or not, but there's one person that did benefit from their death. If they were going to be required to pay out $100,000, but since they're dead, they didn't have to, then they did benefit from the death. And as of now, when I say that we're taking him at his word, I mean, like, I'm not considering Ron a suspect because it seems as though that is accounted for. That doesn't mean that we're not going to verify that and circle back to it. But as of right now, it seems, they're saying that that was accounted for somewhere. So we'll see as we dig deeper into that. Yeah, I don't know, because people ask all the time. We've been through it 30 times on the follow-ups if it could be a murder suicide. I don't see any scenario where that's possible, because you see, they're not paying. Maybe they intended on burning the house down. Maybe that's why they wrote just a check for escrow, to make sure that the insurance was covered or whatever. But that doesn't explain how they ended up dead.
Yeah, I get the theory of that, because I can see how it looks like that, but the physical evidence doesn't tell us anything like that.
Right.
No, if it was just an arson, then I would be looking at, if I was the arson investigator, because people, contrary to popular belief, we don't just look at the fire, we look at all this stuff when I'm investigating a fire, or when I was investigating a fire. But if it was just the house burned down, and I was we always pull financials and do this stuff and look at it, and I was like, oh, they haven't paid their house payment for 3 months. They're in financial hardship. And they did write a check just to pay the escrow to make sure their insurance was up to date. Big red flag that maybe they lit the house on fire for insurance money. But in this case, that makes zero sense, because they ended up dead inside the house. They were not, who benefited? Not John and Vicky, who would benefit from something like that. So then you have to go on into like crazy conspiracy theories, like, well, then who would be their beneficiaries and who could get the insurance money? Like,
I don't see Tiffany like sitting in a dark corner somewhere rubbing her hands together.
No, I'm gonna go. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I'm gonna go murder my mom and her boyfriend and my sister so that I can collect, when she's,
right.
Yeah, that's not even worth entertaining.
Right.
But yeah, that's the big question, is who benefited from this, and that's why we're figuring, and that's why we keep digging and digging and digging. I still think there's something here. I think there's something to what was going on with John and Vicky and their finances. I don't know what it means yet, but we're going to keep digging in on that. But for right now on the podcast, we are moving on to the place where we've been talking about going, which is starting to look at the case against Robert and Christian. And I know everybody's been waiting for that for a long time. I have too. I've actually been very much looking forward to the opportunity of explaining to all of you why I think this is a legitimate case. As I said at the beginning of this episode, a murky case worth investigating. Because I think just from this week's episode, you're going to find that the case isn't nearly as strong as people will make it out to be with their little talking points that jump into the chats and comments sometimes. Because it's you want to talk, the concept Wes was making was the case for innocence is murky. What I will tell you is the case for guilt is super fucking murky, and that's what we're going to get into this week. And that's
I loved the beginning of that episode. This last episode, the books. I thought that was so great. I loved it. I loved how you broke it down and compared it with the case that many of us have very strong feelings about, which is Adnan's case. I thought it was super effective, and I think it continued to keep that fire stoked underneath people that you brought to us with the why. So I thought it was great.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I was kind of,
and I don't even like you.
Right, you can't stand it. Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be weird being around in the same room as each other this next week. So in reality, I'm super excited to meet Janet in person. That's gonna be fun, and we got, of course, work to do. And on those lines, we told you there's meetups coming. There are meetups coming. So one of them on Tuesday night, the 13th. We are meeting at the Buffalo Wild Wings in Palm Desert on Highway 111. Look on any of our socials or go to bobruffevents.com. And what we are asking people to do, it's free. It doesn't cost anything to attend. That's just a big meet and greet. We're going to hang out and talk to all you guys, take pictures, do whatever you guys want to do for a couple of hours from 7 to 9 on Tuesday night in Palm Desert. But what we are asking is that you go to the website and get your free ticket. You don't even need the ticket to get in there. The reason is because, Buffalo Wild Wings said we want to know how many people are going to be there, so we know how many people to put on staff. So we don't want to have them put like 10 extra waitresses or waiters on the floor, and then we show up with 10 people, and we don't want them to have one person trying to manage 80 people.
That's very fair.
So if you can, please go to bobruffevents.com. You'll see in the Palm Desert meetup. Just click that. Just click to get a ticket. It's free. Doesn't cost anything. and that way we'll have a good number of who's coming. I know we talked about, I put it on a social media yesterday, and there's already I think close to 20 people that already selected that. So it should be a fun meetup. And then on Wednesday, the 14th, we're going to be in Los Angeles in the Silver Lake area. That is going to be more than just a meet and greet. We're actually going to do kind of a presentation and do some Q&A. There's going to be like tables and microphones and all that jazz. I'm going to tell them, if it's okay, Janet, where we think it's going to be.
Yeah, totally.
We'll
I mean, it would something really big would have to happen for us to move it, but
yeah, Janet is having anxiety dreams where I have a weird neck last night because she's so worried about this not going smoothly. But the bar is called The Friend, right?
Yeah, The Friend Bar. It's on Hyperion.
Yep, in Silver Lake. And it's going to be
same time window, 7 to 9, so that's easy for people to remember because
Yep.
it's the same as Tuesday.
Yep, 7 to 9 p.m. It'll be the same thing. Those free tickets will be available on the BobRuffEvents.com website Thursday at noon. So if you're listening to this Friday, they're already up. Go grab your tickets. They're free. If you're watching on the YouTube right now, tomorrow, the only reason I waited till Thursday to put those up is because Janet is having a panic attack that something's going to be wrong.
Yeah, I'm so afraid I'm going to go there because I just want to go and check and like meet the owner and stuff in person. But Dr. Shiloh and Dr. Scott will be there, and they actually Shiloh's done an event there before. I've been to the bar many times, but she's the one who actually had done an event, and she feels great about it, and I feel great about it. But I'm just being that person who's like, I do not want to because you all know I'll never hear the end of it.
Ever.
If something goes wrong and it can be blamed on me, I'll never hear the end of it. That's what will be behind you. You'll be like, remember when Janet had an epic fail? That'll be burned into the wall.
LA fan meetup and panel. So if you're going to be in the Palm Springs area on Tuesday or in the LA area on Wednesday next week, or if you're super energetic and want to go to both, you can do that. I wouldn't, because I've driven there before. But both of those will be available on my website to get those free tickets. Looking forward to meeting you all there. Coming up in Sunday's episode, getting back to real quick, Janet, this is a long close, almost as long as the intro.
Love
it. But you mentioned like that. So I'm curious, let me know in like comments and stuff. But, for years of this show, I sat down at my desk with notes and told my story, and it was rough and dirty and clunky, and then later I started writing, really trying to write out long, perfectly told narratives, and then started writing these scripts to do it that way. And then sometimes I just get that when this episode was just like, I'm just going to go old school and do it that way. Let me know what you guys think about that, because there are times like for the episode's coming this weekend where I'm thinking, I can organize this and put some bullet points and just let her rip, or I can try to make this into something much cleaner. But when I let them rip, then when I'm done, I sit there and second guess myself for days, thinking that I rambled too long, like I'm doing right now, or that I repeated myself. And so just let me know what you think about that, because we're always curious what you guys, for those of you that are fans, what you guys like to hear. But this week's episode is going to be about the one single piece of physical evidence that points to Robert and Christian. Episode 37 coming on Sunday is the business card.
Oh, you're coming in hot.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk to you all about that next week.
Can't wait. Thanks, everybody. Hope to see some of you next week.
Thanks, guys.
We're going to stop on our audio.
I won't see
That
any of you.
That was like the opposite.
Fuck all of you.
I know. Everything about this is sad. And also, I went back and was listening to and I don't know if you're going to keep it streaming, but we love you guys on YouTube.
Yeah, we love you live stream. We're shutting you off now. We love you.
I was